if you're going to say certain things that I think are verifiably wrong,
okay,
I think I have the right to defend myself.
Always. On Christmas Eve, Destiny Pisco had a heated argument. Genesis to believe Destiny should have been far more conciliatory, especially after reading the report that proved everything Pisco was arguing for. I hate to ban people because I don't want to like ban like everybody that defends an orbiter because then it feels like I'm legitimately like shitting on everybody. I don't understand how I can make people like I went back and I had people link me because I thought I was going crazy. Like I don't understand it. If I just say like, listen, I'll change my mind if you just link me a piece of evidence supporting this. That's all I want to see. All I want to see is just like link me the piece of evidence supporting it, and then I'll believe you. I said that like a million times. And then when I read it, and I was like, oh, here it is laid out in here, not just as an executive summary part, but a whole section dealing it. Oh, okay, I think I believe you. And then it's like, why can't Destiny just take the L and realize he was wrong the whole time? That's not what we're talking about. I just wanted evidence for it. That's it. My read is his annoyance was more about, about Pisco making a claim, not having the evidence of the report, because I don't think he pointed to that section of the report, Ruminate did, but still making the claim. That was my issue, yes. Yes, Pisco is correct in the eyes of an extremely political/partisan report, a report which may be 100% accurate, but still something to consider. That's kind of weird. It's like they're arguing over Schrodinger's cat. Pisco says there's obviously no cat there. D asks for examples of other boxes where cats haven't been there. Pisco says this one time at Petco, he found a random box, picked it up, blah, blah, blah. D rages and Ruminate comes in, shows a report from a group of people who lifted the box up and said there's no cat. Pisco says he knew it the whole time. D points out that if Pisco knew, he would have just pointed to the report in the first place rather than go on tangents about not finding dogs under boxes in Petco. So even though Petco was correct, he was kind of correct for the wrong reasons. Sure, kind of, a little bit. This is as close as, yeah. So he started the conversation saying, I don't even need a document. Okay, I don't even need a document. I just need, is there a single example of this ever happening in U.S. history?
I think, hopefully this will.
Oh, I'm just asking for, I think here I'm asking for like if the president has directly ordered the National Guard to do something, right? With the J6 report in it, and ended by claiming the report is all he ever cared about. That's, oh, sorry, hold on, I'm sorry. This guy's gone forever. Never mind, this guy's retarded.
I'm trying to persuade you that Trump was both morally and constitutionally obligated to take direct action with respect to law enforcement and the National Guard.
Okay, I don't even need a document. I was saying, is there a single example of this ever? Yeah, when I say I don't even need a document, I'm trying to lower the threshold of evidence. I'm not saying like, give me a document that shows the explicit like rules of when a president is, I'm just saying like, I don't even need a document. Just like show me a time where it's happened. That's all I'm asking. Him trying to act like I didn't care about documents when I made that statement. Yeah, okay. I should have gone, oh my God, I should have just banned him as soon as I read the OP. The document was a document Ruminate compiled, which included the J6 report. And yeah, I'm sure your eyes are rolling back to your skull and saying how you were threatened. Bro, the document, the J6 report is 800 pages long. Oh my God. It has to be Pisco's condescension that's dripping. Listen, I don't care if Pisco's condescending. We go hard when we argue with each other. None of Pisco's attitude, I don't have any problem with any of that. I think Pisco's a fun guy to fight with. I just disagreed with his, I just wanted a thing pointing to like the fact of the matter being correct. That's all I was looking for. Seems like people aren't aware that you're raising this threshold because you have to debate the most brain-rotting concern. No, it's not about people. It's just, this is just like a human thing. I don't know how to like put this into like a better understanding. It's actually the exact same thing with the COVID lab leak hypothesis. For the longest time, and I think I was even careful on the COVID time, I was like, there's no evidence right now that it came from a lab. There's been 2 big studies, both published in Nature, that made it look like it came from a wet mark. I don't think there was any good evidence that it came from a lab. And everybody's like, no, I came from a lab. And it's like, okay, there's no good evidence for it. And then later on, I don't remember if it was another big study that was posted. It might have been a write-up relating to Intel reports. I don't remember. But something came out where it's like, oh, this makes it look like it might have come from a lab. I don't know if it shifted the consensus opinion on that it might have come from a lab. But then I was like, oh, it might have actually. And now people are like, oh, see, I was right the whole time. I told you. Now you can't take the L. It's like, no. I don't know how to, yeah. You can't retrospectively evaluate if your opinion was good or bad. I don't know if like, if you're a poker player, you understand that you can't retrospectively evaluate an opinion. You only prospectively evaluate the opinion. Or if you do retrospectively evaluate, you have to go with the data that you had at the time. Like, that's it. Like, that's all you can do. Destiny, I was right the whole time. I wasn't retrospective at all. You're unhinged. Pisco, all I ever wanted was a single factual point of evidence, but you didn't have it because you haven't read any part of the report, which is fine. But what I had said, a little bit unhingedly or a little bit smugly, what I had said is, it seems like you've read news stories that mention the report, but you haven't read any of it yourself, which now, retrospectively, was true. That is true. That is what happened. You haven't read the report or any part of the report, or maybe at the end you admitted that you read like the conclusion or something, but that was it. You're just lying about the convo. Haha. Okay. Whatever you say. Listen, the record will show what the record shows. Destiny, there was good evidence from the very beginning. Lab leak was the most reasonable explanation for COVID's origin. The problem was the xenophobic rhetoric around it. No, there was no good evidence in the very beginning that lab leak was the most credible thing. The best you can point to is like kind of circumstantial stuff. But all the genetic profiling and everything that had been going on in that area, there was that big one that was published in Nature, at least one big one, seemed to point to the wet markets as the origination of when they were cataloging and profiling all the little genetic originations of the disease or whatever. Destiny, will you accept that I specifically cited the report hours before and you poo-pooed it? Yes, Pisco, because you cited something you hadn't read. This would be a case that would actually qualify as like bad appeal to authority. Seems like no one cares about the process, I just want to be right. Sure. We found new viruses in the wild with more genetic similarity than previously published genomes. Sure, maybe. Destiny, the entire argument of the report is my argument. There is no difference. The only thing that's different is that one was the report. Yeah, Pisco, because we're just dudes and the report has a lot more authority behind it. Do you think that your arguments relating to duties relating to the president and everything are as authoritative as the January 6th commission that talks specifically about like also there's like 50, but I cited the report. You can't just cite an 800-page document. It doesn't work like that. You know this. When you went to law school and you had to do, I know you guys did mock cases and defended mock people, you can never just cite an entire other case. You have to cite the case, you've got to discuss the similarities, then you've got to discuss the rulings, and you've got to show why it applies to the particular case that you're either, that you're litigating. Like, I know you've gone through this exact process before. I know it 1,000,000%. I know you've done this before. I know you've never in your life, in any assignment or whatever, where it was like, make an argument for this. I cite this case. That's never happened. You have to talk about the particulars of the case and why they match. It's the same thing here. Just saying like, I'm citing this 800-page thing. Wait, holy shit. I'm not getting yoinked on this. I'm not getting yoinked on this again. We moved past this. Okay.
My brother in Christ, are you there?
Oh boy. Yeah.
How you doing, friend?
Hi.
You okay?
Yeah, I'm totally fine.
My brother.
Yeah.
I think that what's happening now is not necessary. But if you're going to say certain things that I think are verifiably wrong,
okay,
I think I have the right to defend myself.
Always.
Is that fair?
Guaranteed by the Fifth Amendment or whatever the fuck.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we were discussing, because I had said that Trump is responsible for the delay.
Yeah.
Agreed? Mm-hmm. And my argument was that the president had a duty, enough high-level duty, to have at least inform himself, make calls, and to take an active role in the defense of the Capitol. And essentially, that argument grounds down to Article 2 of the Constitution and common sense. And the only additional thing that the report provides from the Select Committee is just, these people agree with me. That's it, right? And so to the extent that there's any
report
added,
hold on. The report cited a lot more details that actually answered some of the questions I was directly asking you, number one. And number two, I can't believe you're citing common sense as like what was satisfying any side of the argument here.
Listen, the reason why I'm citing common sense is what I'm telling you is people can disagree, right? Reasonable people can disagree on what the scope of the duties are of the president. They're very broad. And you brought up tons of good examples where, the president technically has an authority in a given area, but where there would be no expectation or no responsibility that any reasonable person would put forth on the president. And so the argument about whether or not the president has to, has a duty or responsibility to be like operationally involved in the defense of the Capitol has to do with values. It's a value judgment, right? There's no authoritative absolute source of law controlling precedent on that specific question that's like, in this specific situation, the president has a responsibility to do X.
Sure, but isn't that exact? But that's why there are two ways that can help remedy this. or address this. One is we can look at prior situations where what is the expectation and how have people followed through. That can give us some guiding light. Or two is we can see what does an authoritative body say about this particular thing. I would never just appeal to common sense.
Right. So like if I had said, by the way, Stephen, the Supreme Court agrees with me that the president had a duty to have an operational role in the defense of the Capitol. First of all, the Supreme Court would never, I don't think they would ever make a statement like that, because a lot of that is up to the discretion of the political branches and what they determine to be, appropriate. A lot of that is going to be, if there were an impeachment proceeding about the president's like negligence or something, that in some sense might be a political question, and reasonable minds might disagree about whether the president was negligent or he had a duty in that specific instance. And so, like, what can I cite? I can cite a committee full of lame duck Republicans and Democrats who agree with me, which I did. I said, these people agree with me. But the additional value add, what additional value add is it in that committee that I did not also provide?
One was the explicit details of tons of people providing Trump with exactly what was happening as the situation was going on. That was one thing that I was not aware of.
I had said prior that there were aides informing him, right? You took that to mean random aides, like miscellaneous aides. When I say aides does not mean that they're low-ranking officials. I cited specifically the chief of staff, and I cited specifically the minority leader of the House of Representatives. And I cited testimony from one Cassidy Hutchinson, who was in the room and talking to others, including Cipollone and others.
If you want to go back and watch the VOD, because you're rewriting the record. So first of all, one, you did cite the minority leader. I looked up the call and you weren't familiar with it. You also half cited Cassidy, but that came after you said, I think that came after you said McCarthy. But after I challenged you on the McCarthy call and you realized that you didn't have the full context of that, you dropped the Cassidy thing and you didn't pick that up either. So you weren't familiar with any of these people. We can, if you want, somebody can find the exact...
With those. What? So the call with McCarthy, which ended with him saying, well, I guess they're more pissed about the election than you, that's a call that I'm familiar with. How can you say I'm not familiar with it?
Because when I challenged you on that, and I said, it doesn't sound like McCarthy is asking for help here. It sounds like he was just calling to cuss out the president. You dropped that.
So I was providing that as evidence that help was needed.
Yeah, I know, but then I challenged you on the idea that help was needed because it doesn't seem like McCarthy was asking for help there, and then you dropped it. And then you didn't bring up the Cassidy thing afterwards. You dropped that as well.
That portion, the fact that he's communicating to Trump what is happening in the Capitol and the dire situation, that was not me trying to cite that as a formal request for assistance. That was me showing that the president was well informed by watching TV, by talking to aides about what was happening and the dire situation at the Capitol. That's what that was used to provide for. And everything about...
Okay. What? We can, if somebody has the link to the VOD, we can look at it. You cited the McCarthy call, and you said this is an example of him being a request for help being made. I just gone over that call because Josiah had cited it. And then when I Googled and went over the call, it didn't sound at all like he was requesting it. It sounds like he was calling Trump to like cuss him out and they got into a disagreement over this or whatever. It doesn't sound like he was asking for help at all. And then when I brought that up to you, not only did you drop that line of evidence, I'm pretty sure you did, you had also half said the Cassidy name, but then you didn't even go back to that because I asked you, well, we can go through all the calls, but then either you or Josiah went off into a different area. So it sounds like you weren't familiar with those calls. You tried to cite them. And then when I was familiar with them, you were like, okay, never mind. And you moved to something else. That's what I remember. Now, maybe my brain is rotted on that part.
No.
You don't think that happened? Okay, we should just find that timestamp. We should listen.
No, I don't think that happened because this is all, in your point, in your perspective at that moment, irrelevant. Because you said, essentially, he had already delegated that to Christopher Miller. And so whether or not the request is, like, who cares if the request is coming from
yeah, but what were some of the reasons? What was one of the big, what was one of the
argument, wait, let me finish this. Your argument was that Trump had delegated. He had delegated, end of story. Mm-hmm. That was your argument.
What were one of the big reasons why I said that delegation? Do you remember when we had the whole talk about how like a higher manager wouldn't call and intervene in like a lower process or whatever? Mm-hmm. What was one of my big supporting pieces of evidence for that?
For why a middle?
Yeah, for why Trump probably shouldn't like go below Miller and try to make it.
If he didn't have the facts on the ground.
Exactly. Yes. Okay. Yeah. One of the things, though, but your call from McCarthy didn't establish that at all. And you didn't talk about any other piece of information. When I read the dereliction of duty section of the J6 report, there's like 50 different times where people are informing exactly what's going on to either Trump, to Meadows, to Ivanka, where people are trying to pull him in. So it seems like Trump actually had an incredibly clear idea of how fucked the situation was and that no help was coming. That would have been a piece of evidence where if you cited that, I would have been like, oh shit, let's look for that on the report. If that happened, then yeah, I believe you 100%. That was one of the biggest things that changed my mind, because one of the big things I could bring up was like, he didn't know the situation. He wasn't in the situation room. It sounded like a clusterfuck, but there were all these different people going to him.
You think it was plausible, the start of that call, you thought it was plausible that Trump was like totally unaware about what was happening on January 6th and not intimately invested in what was going on and following it closely?
Yes, so,
you think that was a possible situation?
Yeah, of course it's a possible situation, because usually the reports are usually what's just said like briefly about Trump is that when January 6th was happening, Trump was stewing in his fucking room with a Diet Coke just watching TV. And then I've also read the quote of Mark Meadows where people went up to him and was like, hey, are you going to say anything to Trump? And Mark is like, you know, it's fucked. He doesn't care. I've read like those quotes before. So no, I had no idea the extent to which he was informed.
I also reject the notion that the
Do you acknowledge what I just said, or are you going to skip the next point?
Yeah. So you're saying that based on what you've been reading, that it's conceivable to you that the president wasn't informed about what was happening on January 6th sufficient enough to place a call to the Defense Department to get in touch.
Yes.
That is so.
Do you acknowledge that position is like a reasonable mind based on like?
It is not reasonable. No, and I'll explain why it's not reasonable. It is just based on watching TV, and we're going to agree on this or disagree with this, and this is bedrock. Do you agree that just watching TV and seeing what's happened in the Capitol is sufficient information for Trump to have a duty to call the Defense Department?
I don't think it's sufficient based on what's on TV, no.
So you do not think it's that just watching what's occurring on TV, following what's happening on Twitter, that those two facts in isolation, that does not create a duty for Trump himself to communicate with his subordinates in the Defense Department?
I don't think so, no. Just on TV on its own, no. Not necessarily.
Okay. I think that is unreasonable. I think that nobody who, and this is a values question, I think that anybody who has a respect for what the presidency is for and what the constitutional oath is for, I think any reasonable person would say, seeing what's occurring on the Capitol, watching it on TV, and not calling and communicating firsthand with a subordinate about the state of what's going on in January 6th is itself a dereliction of duty. Okay. If you don't agree with that, that's just a values difference.
Sure.
And that's not resolvable by additional facts. We're assuming facts there. And you're come on. I mean, you can act bored all you want, but the truth is you were biting some incredibly unnecessary bullets. And right now you're biting one too.
Okay.
Which is that you think that it's conceivable that watching, like I'll give you another one. Let's say that you're the president watching on TV what's happening on 9/11. 2 airplanes go into the Twin Towers. Do you think that the president would have an obligation to get in touch with subordinates at the Department of Defense and many other agencies?
Like the people directly under him, yes, but below them, probably not.
No, just Miller in this context. Miller is the immediate person. There's no, let's get rid of the whole chain of command thing. We're following the chain of command. Assume that for all of this. So wouldn't President Bush, if he just watched 9/11 happen on TV, doesn't he have a duty to inform himself and to be active in the process of the response to that crisis?
Probably, yeah.
Isn't the same thing true of January 6th?
What was the big difference that I gave you between events like this before? Do you remember?
No, I don't remember. Remind me.
Okay, I don't remember either. But there's a huge difference.
Oh, come on. There's no difference here.
Okay.
There's no difference here. This is an event. You agree that January 6th, this attack on the Capitol is unprecedented, right? 9/11, people can say more people died, it was worse, whatever. But they're both events that demand presidential involvement at the highest level. And just for Trump.
Wait a second. Hold on. To be clear, wait. I just want you to acknowledge what you just said was wrong. The January 6th response did not require the intervention of Donald Trump.
It requires the president. No. I'm sorry. What I'm talking about now is responsibility. All right. Let's not confuse that with authority. We've all acknowledged that the president has authority in this role. So we're not. And I thought that the whole point wasn't about authority. It's about responsibility and your duty. In the context of January 6th, if you're watching that occur, you have a duty to stay informed. You have a duty to inform yourself and to communicate, don't you?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Come on, dude.
We're gonna run down all. I already gave you like the differentiators on all of these things before. I don't feel like running down every single possible.
You don't even answer. So the answer is no. He doesn't have a responsibility to inform himself on January 6th. He's watching it happen, and he's just saying, "Oh, they'll figure it out. I don't need to inform myself what's going on. I don't need a status report." Is it reasonable?
Yeah, I'm not. I don't know. We're just gonna end up like re-rolling through like every single argument we already.
Is the
did.
answer no or I don't know?
The answer is I don't want to run. We're re-rolling everything. You don't even remember any of the things I told you yesterday, so I don't know.
I mean, you can answer yes, no, or I don't know, or I don't want to do it, or I don't even want to talk about it. I don't want to give an answer. That's fine if you don't want to give an answer. But like I think it's not a hard bullet for you to bite, which is like at the very least the president should have stayed informed. If he wasn't informed, he should have been. And so no matter what, you can't get around the duty dereliction because it's either a duty to stay informed himself or it's a duty to act upon information he should have had.
Would you agree that like Biden not making phone calls to the border to figure out like illegal immigrant new caravans coming through, is that like a dereliction of Biden's duty if he's not making those phone calls?
So to be 100,000 trillion% clear, it would be a dereliction of duty for Joe Biden to not inform himself about the situation at the southern border. Yes, that would be a dereliction.
When you say inform himself, he obviously gets regular reports and regular updates on things. Should he be taking extraordinary measures to get himself informed? If Fox News is reporting another caravan at the border, should he be making a phone call and saying like, hey, I want information relating to this particular thing. I need more info.
Reasonable minds can disagree on the margin here about what it means to be extraordinary or like information about this. I think you should be having regular weekly updates on it. The migration crisis is more of a steady problem, right? It's a problem that has existed throughout many administrations and now has been punctuated.
That's not how Republicans present it. They said it's an unprecedented crisis, a caravan at the border.
Yes, no. It is the immigration problem on the southern border is a big problem, and the Biden administration has a responsibility, and Biden himself, as our president, has a responsibility to stay informed. It's a little different than a crisis where minutes matter, right? This is a crisis where minutes matter, and the response here needs to be coordinated at the highest level because it's a level of urgency that, even though I agree the southern border is urgent, it's not like the crisis in the Capitol. And they're different in that key respect. And if I were to say anything else and Biden has a duty to inform himself about the border, then we're in the world where the president has no obligations to inform himself about anything, right? If Trump doesn't have an obligation to inform himself about January 6th, what obligation does the president have at all in terms of responsibility? None, right? I mean, and that can't be the world we live in.
Okay.
Right, you agree the president has some responsibilities.
Yeah. No, I don't. I don't think the president has any responsibilities.
No, I know you agree with that, man. I know you agree with that. And the bare minimum responsibility that we should impose on the president of the United States is to inform himself on these types of crises in the moment, right? If there was an attack from another country, we would expect the president to inform himself. Even if you just say he can delegate the authority, okay, he can delegate it. But at the very minimum, he has a responsibility to inform himself.
Yeah.
That should be the easiest thing to grant. But the thing is, once you grant, this is why it's hard for you to do it. Once you grant that Trump had a duty to inform himself about January 6th, and then you have two worlds, either he knew about everything or he should have known about everything, then the dereliction of duty almost by necessity follows. And you don't want to admit to that, I think, because your position at the start was that he didn't have such a duty. But the thing is now that you've read the report, we shouldn't even be debating about this, right? You just read the report so everyone can see it. And that supposedly was me post-hawking and I got morally lucky and all that stuff. But you're still fighting me on the fundamentals. You're still fighting on whether or not he had a duty. You're still fighting on whether he had a duty to inform. Didn't the report clear everything up? And of course, it didn't clear
That's not even
up.
what this argument is about. I don't think you know what we're arguing about right now. We're not arguing about whether he had a duty to do anything. That's not at all what this conversation was about.
That's been my point since the start.
That's fine, but that's not what this conversation was about. This conversation was about whether or not I should have agreed with you without you being able to cite anything authoritative that demonstrated your position. That's what this conversation was about. I don't know why you came in here to argue the same point that I've already been convinced of because I read the J6 report now.
Clearly it needs hashing out because you don't know if you agree whether or not he had a duty to stay informed. You just made that clear that you weren't willing to say, yes, of course, Trump had a duty to stay informed. And of course, the January 6th committee is correct.
I don't think it's like clear and obvious. This is a once in a lifetime historical event. All of the other comparisons you're making are comparisons where the president.
So do you agree with the committee or not? Do you agree with the committee or not? I mean, because the whole point was
based on the level of information that Trump had at the time. Yeah, it seems obvious to me that he should have been making like some sort of like actual huge deliberate effort to intervene. I didn't know that he had that much information. And by the way, neither did you. That's why you keep going back to this. Doesn't the president, by watching TV, have a duty? You're conflating the argument. If you're saying, doesn't the president just by watching TV know that they need his help? No, I don't necessarily think they do. And I think reasonable minds there can disagree. I don't think that he needs to call based on what he's watching on TV, but based on all of the information that was delivered to him in the room that you didn't know about, because that's why you didn't bring it up, and that's why I read it in the report and then I changed my mind. Then yeah, I think obviously now he definitely has a duty to intervene, of course.
So I don't know what to say. Like if the Capitol is on fire, does he have a duty to inform himself?
No.
Are you just memeing? Like what's going on here?
I think you're like so stuck in like post hoc mode, in like retrospective mode.
It's not post hoc.
That like if there's a fire on like the White House lawn, okay, if like a fire starts, like is Biden the one calling the fire department?
That's not what we're talking about here.
My assumption would be that there are people underneath them that have this particular thing taken care of. The president is not doing a day-to-day delegation of responsibilities. The president probably has 50 billion things that are calling for his attention at any point in time. So no, if the White House is on fire, if the lawn's on fire, no, it's not the president that is like, I need to figure out everything that's going on with this particular thing. Probably not in general. No, I don't think so.
So here's where we're at, right? Like I agree with you that there's plenty of examples where the president doesn't have a duty to inform himself because things are too trivial or he's too busy with more important things, and so you can't imply a duty to inform oneself about every particular thing that could conceivably happen in the country. My proposal to you, a modest proposal, I think, is that there are such things. There are such overriding situations that require the president to have a duty to inform themselves about that crisis situation. One example.
That's not your goal. We already agree on that. Obviously, there's some things you should inform. Don't try to make a general argument. It was over specifically this particular thing.
Yeah, so this particular thing, right? I don't need a committee report to tell me about the particular values you have about what you expect from the president. Now, it just so happens that the committee full of Democrats and lame duck Republicans agrees with my values, but they don't cite authoritative law, right? They cite, Milley agrees with me. Mm-hmm. But we knew that Milley agreed with me, and
that's
you
not what
Milley.
That's not what I. Yeah, I don't understand. I don't think you're functioning in good faith at this point. Do you? Because you're bringing up stuff that doesn't even matter. Hold on. Do you think that me reading that Milley agrees with you is what convinced me?
I think that
No. Don't answer with a question or a statement. I'm asking. Do you think that, because that's what you just cited? You said,
I have no idea. I don't even know if you're convinced.
No. Hold on. Okay, let me ask again. Do you think that saying that Milley agrees with you, do you think that that's convincing to me?
I don't know.
Okay. Did you not bring up exactly that thing? Didn't I read a news article that said exactly the thing that Milley agrees with you?
Yeah. So.
Okay. Wait. So you do know. So then you do know. I don't know why you said you didn't know. So you do know that. Hold on. No. So then the next question is. Wait. So the next question. Hold on. No. We have to be sure we're in the same world. The next question is. Do you remember the things that I said that convinced me?
The committee agreed with me. And
No. What were the things in the committee that agreed? You've done pontificating for like an hour now, okay? What were the things in the committee that made me go, oh, Trump definitely should have...
I have no idea.
Okay, then I don't know why you're even arguing me here. What are we even arguing about then?
So that's my argument. My argument is there is nothing of substance in the committee report other than the fact of the committee agreeing with me.
Okay, you're saying that because you're not familiar with any of the committee report. All you've read are media headlines, and that's fine. Yes. That's your position, but that's where you're at. That's not a good enough standard of evidence for me. Maybe it is for you because you hate Trump or whatever. That's fine. That's not enough for me. That was our whole disagreement was about.
The underlying facts that the committee relies on, the underlying facts, are the only thing that you could possibly cite to are Trump's knowledge, which is well established at this point. Trump's knowledge was, we knew that Trump was aware about what was going on January 6th.
Then why didn't you say all of that? Why did you keep relying on he was watching TV?
Wait, no, hang on.
We're not arguing whether or not he did. We're arguing what the evidence of that was.
We cited that specific aides and specific people who informed him about the crisis happening in the Capitol.
You didn't, not really, because if you did, you would have leaned in on that every single time I said, what about the Situation Room? Trump didn't have all the information. Trump didn't
care. You didn't care because your argument was about delegation.
Wait, if I didn't care, then why would me reading those exact things in the J6 report change my mind?
That's my point. I don't think there is a basis. I don't think there is a basis for you to change your mind other than the fact that it's cited for authority. But it's cited for authority not on any substantive factual divergence with what we were saying. I mean, the committee report is making our argument that he had a duty to react and he didn't, and he had a duty to make calls. That's our point the whole time. That he had a duty to make calls. That's what the committee report said. You don't even accept that finding from the committee that he had a duty to make calls.
Yeah, because I don't accept that without like more information, which is what's provided in this document. That was the whole point of getting the information. How much did Trump know at the time? That's why we talked for like an hour about like the Situation Room and what was going on in there.
So the difference is the committee gives more information about Trump's knowledge and awareness at the time.
Yeah.
And you think that was relevant?
I think it was super relevant, yes.
Okay. And you think independent of the information Trump had, you're not sure whether he had a duty to inform himself?
I mean, retrospectively, we can see, yeah. But at the time, I think that people can disagree.
You think reasonable people can disagree about whether Trump had a duty to call people independent of any aide talking to him? The mere knowledge of what's happening in January 6th that's obtained from TV, you're not sure if he had a duty.
Also, stop saying just the aide talking to him. There were a lot of really important people, including, I think, his son, including his daughter-in-law, including Mark Meadows multiple times, including...
Independent of all that.
Okay.
Independent of all that, and assume that those never happened. Those calls never took place, and all we have is Trump watching on Fox News. You're telling us right now that you're not sure if Trump has a responsibility to coordinate with the federal government on that issue.
No, I don't think so. I don't think it's like so clearly obvious, but I understand retrospectively, yeah, you can say obviously, yeah, that is the case, but no, I don't think that is so clearly obvious. Much the same that anytime there's a BLM protest or protesters going to the Capitol, I don't think the police or the president has to call every single time on the phone to figure out what's going on. I don't necessarily.
So if this happens again in the next election, on like at the moment the Capitol is breached, would you say, I'm not sure if Biden has the obligation to stay informed about what's going on at the Capitol? You would say that?
I think there are going to be so many things that change that I don't think that you could ever draw an analog to this situation
all else
again.
Equal. It's a hypothetical.
All else equal, Biden has incited a crowd to go to the Capitol after saying that he wants the vice president to not certify the election. Like that, all else equal? Or
all else equal, Biden is presiding at the time that there's an attack on the Capitol.
Everything that makes this situation what it is like a once in a lifetime unique thing that is all related to the actions that Trump and his crazy team of insane people have taken, like leading up to this. I'll engage with crazy hypotheticals, but normally, like, I don't know if I can do like an all else equal on this situation, because all else equal, like, it's impossible to imagine.
Okay, so I can just change it. So all else equal, someone flies a plane into the Capitol. Does Biden have an obligation to stay informed about that situation?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, all else equal, people storm the Capitol. Does Biden have an obligation to stay informed about the situation?
Probably not.
All else equal, people with guns invade the Capitol. Does Biden have an obligation to inform himself if he knows those bare facts?
It's going to depend on like who's informing him of what, or like I imagine that generally when things like this are going on, the standard operating procedure is probably that the president is just automatically being updated by another person. I would imagine that since Biden isn't fucking insane like Trump, that's probably what's happening. I could be wrong, but I seriously doubt that Biden would ever have to make a phone call because he's probably in regular contact with the people operating under him because he's not fucking insane. That'd be my guess.
It's a hypo. Like, so this situation, I assume also, by the way, just so you know, my baseline assumption is that the president's getting briefed on issues of enormous national security issues, right? Mm-hmm. That's my assumption all the time. But however, that isn't your default assumption on the Trump situation, just to be clear. Your default assumption isn't that the president's being informed when Trump in January 6th.
Sure. Why do you think I'm curious, why do you think Miller never called Trump?
I don't have any earthly idea why Miller didn't.
Why do you think the lieutenant chair, or whatever, the army, why didn't he call Trump?
I have no idea.
Okay, well, like if it's so obvious,
we're not talking about
if it's so obvious that the president needs to be informed on these issues, that the president, blah blah blah, why wouldn't any of these people call the president to inform him, or call the president for any part of this?
I think it was a big problem. I think that now you don't. It's not necessarily malicious from the perspective of the DOD.
Yeah, but it's so obvious, Pisco. Hold on, Pisco. You said it was common sense obvious. Why aren't any of these people trying to call the president to inform him?
So Miller and the rest of the chain of command, I have no idea. No. I said it's obvious the president's getting informed, not that the principals are calling the president directly. Do you understand the difference there?
Yeah, but you're not just saying that the president needs to be informed. You're saying the president needs to take action.
So the president, we're not talking about the duties of subordinates. We're talking about the duties of the president as president. Okay.
Yeah, but you're saying
So
that he had a duty to make phone calls and not just be informed, right?
Yes, Trump had a duty to make phone calls. I'm not talking about Miller. I'm saying Trump.
Okay.
Trump had a duty. Don't you agree that he has to make those calls if that's happening? You just said, right? If the plane crashed into the Capitol, Biden would have a duty to inform himself on that situation. And guess what? If it later comes out that Biden heard about that and made 0 calls, what would your reaction to that be?
I probably would have zero reaction because I imagine Biden would probably be getting called and updated.
But assume we know that no one called him and he didn't try to make any calls. Would your reaction be like, oh, well, he didn't have a duty?
If a plane crashed into the Capitol and Biden had no idea, and I would say that's probably pretty weird. Yeah.
Okay. All I'm asking you is to extend it to January 6th. That January 6th is a crisis of significant magnitude, such that if the president's watching it unfold on live TV and he is not trying to inform himself, get a situation report, then he should be. That doesn't seem like a big bullet to bite. You should bite it.
No, I'm good. Because I don't want to look like a fucking lunatic when I debate conservatives. If you want to bite that bullet, you can go do your shit. But I'm not going to walk into the 50 million pitfalls of should Biden be phone calling and this and that and that and that and that, and should everybody make blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to walk into that retarded trap because there's a million other points to argue that are so much more solid than this retarded point of should Trump have been proactively making phone calls based on what he saw on TV? It's just such a worthless point. I would never waste my time arguing
Trump
this.
has no duties. I mean, presidents have no duties to inform themselves about anything.
Yeah, that's what I said. That was my argument, right? Presidents have absolutely no duty to inform themselves about anything. I think that was my argument. Yes.
When does the president have a duty to inform themselves?
Never. And except for when common sense dictates.
I mean, really think about it. When do you think that the president should inform themselves on a matter, or they have a duty to?
I think when it's obvious, when there's a clear and obvious breakdown in chain of command.
But okay. So my situations when a plane hits into the side of the Capitol, that does not involve a clear and obvious breakdown in the chain of command.
Yeah, but I also imagine the president probably wouldn't be directly issuing orders there. He would just be getting informed by his staff.
I'm asking, independent of anyone else acting, does the president have a self-standing duty to inform himself in that situation?
Can you give me an example of how this would play out? I don't even know what you're asking right now.
Okay. I'm asking,
so you're saying in a hypothetical world, I would say yes. In a hypothetical world where all the phones are dead and the president's not getting updated on literally anything going on, then the president would have an obligation, I guess, to inform himself. Yeah.
Yes, that's all I'm asking.
No, that's not what you're asking. What you're asking is if the president has a duty to act. He was already getting informed. That wasn't the issue. It was whether he has a duty to act.
Wait. There are two. So one is, there's a world in which Trump has the requisite knowledge to make the decision, right? That's the world that we both agree that's the world, okay? That exists.
Yeah.
But there's also the world in which he doesn't have that information, where you're like, well, he shouldn't act if he doesn't have the information. In that part of the situation, if in that world, even though he shouldn't make an action without information, he has another duty to inform himself. So either he knows or he should have known. And both of those would be a dereliction of duty and would cause the responsibility to be transmittable to him in either situation, either him having the knowledge and not acting, or not informing himself when it was clear and obvious he should have informed himself. That's my argument.
I'm sorry, say that again. What is the argument?
So there are two worlds. One world in which Trump has the requisite knowledge to make the decision. In that world, he's derelict in his duty for not acting.
Correct, which I think is the world we live in, yes.
I agree, that's the world we live in. But in the world in which Trump is not appropriately informed enough to make the decision, he has another duty that he's failing at, which is the duty to inform himself. That's what my argument is, no matter which way you look at it, either he had enough information or didn't have enough information, it's overdetermined. He still failed. He's still derelict.
Okay, hypothetically, what if it was the case that Meadows came in and Meadows said, hey, the Capitol is getting pretty messed up right now. Trump said, oh, well, what's going on? And Meadows says, Miller has it under control. We're waiting for authorization, or we're waiting for some tactical gear to be delivered, and then the National Guard will be deployed.
Yeah, that's very different. Yeah, so in that situation, Trump has fulfilled his duty to get informed. He just has bad info.
Okay,
right?
What if somebody comes into the room? What if his Trump comes in and says hey, Trump, Dad, the Capitol shit is crazy right now. Miller probably has it under control, but there are a few delays. But Miller's got it.
Yeah, there's some hard margin cases you can bring up. And
okay, hold on, no. Those aren't hard margin cases. Okay, so if you acknowledge that there are things that Trump could hear or Trump could know. And if the thing that changed my mind was seeing the information that was delivered to Trump in the room, then that's all I need to see.
Okay, but if you didn't have that information, if there was no evidence that he was informed about the things that you say he was informed about, vis-a-vis the congressional report, if there was no evidence of that, wouldn't you still be like mad at Trump for not informing himself?
There are so many other parts here where Trump's responsibility is like been completely fucked, that this is just a thing that the only reason why I even knew anything about this was because some people on the left made the claim that Donald Trump intentionally mucked up the process, and that's why there was a 3-hour delay. That was the thing that I did research into. And it seems to be the case when I did research into that, that's not true. And I think all of us agree with that. Trump didn't do anything to intentionally muck up anything. Now, the argument that you've given me that was new to me as of 3 or 4 days ago was that, well, Trump had a duty to intervene here at some point. And this is one I'd never heard before. And that's why I said over and over again, can you give me a historical example? Is there an authoritative body that said this? Is there some like proof that like he's supposed to do this? Blah, blah, blah. That's when we looked at the chain of command and we said, like, oh, well, Miller had all the information he needed to act. That's when we looked at the situation. I'm like, oh, it seems like the problem wasn't waiting for a word from Trump. It was just figuring out like how to like logistically get shit there without it optically looking bad. At every stage here, I said, listen, if you got a document, if you can link me a thing, if you could show me something, blah, 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 then I'd be like, oh, I changed my mind. And the thing that I finally read when I went digging through the report or got linked to the part of the dereliction of duty part and I read it, oh, Donald Trump was being informed over and over and over again that there was a breakdown in the chain of command, that the situation at the Capitol was worsening, that all of this was going to worsen. And at that point, it's like, oh, well, Donald Trump not only knew then that his chain of command was not working, something was fucked, he also knew that the situation was growing increasingly dire. At that point, he absolutely had a duty to intervene, if for no other reason, because he's the one that's in charge of the deployment of the National Guard in D.C. Those are the only facts that I needed.
Okay, I mean, I think you should consider the situation when Trump was not informed, and in that world, he's also responsible, because in that world, he had a duty to inform himself. And that's where I'll rest. I encourage you to think about it from that perspective, maybe. And listen, I totally respect that people can disagree with me, people can have different opinions. I don't hold it against you. I just think that like the substance of what we're arguing about here is values, the values you have and the duties you expect of a president. And I'm not really sort of I don't need, right? Like, and you shouldn't need a congressional report to tell you, even though it's authority because it's congressional people who have high-ranking jobs and all that were voted on by the people. You shouldn't need a report to come out and tell you that the president has a duty here. And unfortunately,
yeah,
like,
but none again. You're like everything you just said was a waste of oxygen. It's not a values question. Hold on, real quick. None is a values question. All of this from the start, I feel like I said this a billion times, it was an operational question. Does the president have the expectation here operationally to intervene in matters like this? Again, that's why I said, is there an example historically this happened? That was the only question. If you ask me broadly, and I think I've agreed with this a million times, does the president have a duty? Absolutely, of course. Obviously, he has a duty. The question is, did he fulfill the duty by delegating the power? It seemed to me, I would say, obviously, yes, he did. That the power was delegated, which is why I said a million times, Miller made the call. It just took him 3 hours too long to do it. But then there's an intervening factor there that would make me change my mind and say, well, Trump had an additional duty to do even more. And that would be if he found out there was a breakdown in the situation where for some reason his people under him weren't moving as quickly as they should have. And that, when I started to read into the report, that was being met because he was being updated continuously that the situation was devolving and nothing was happening.
Okay.
Yeah, some side linked you to that part, but Pisco, we got to go, buddy.
Yeah, I'm going. Bye-bye.
Where are you going?
And
Are you guys doing a debate?
Yeah, Pisco and I are doing a debate about the 14th Amendment, and Wick also said that you're invited if you don't have anything going on. So
luck.
Consider it. All right, thank you, buddy. Goodbye.
Bye.
Get out of here. Oh my God.
Love you, buddy. Why is this guy such an asshole?